Yeah, I don't think Mother knew about this.
Uncle Marvin was strangled by his own beard.
Yeah, never saw it coming. And welcome to America's Family History Show, Extreme Genes and ExtremeGenes.com. Happy New Year! It is Fisher here, your radio root sleuth, on the program where we shake your family tree and watch the nuts fall out. This segment of the show is brought to you by RootsMagic.com. And coming up today, very excited to have two segments with CeCe Moore. And if you're unfamiliar with CeCe, I bet you've seen her on Finding Your Roots with Dr. Henry Louis Gates on PBS. She's a regular on 2020. She is the DNA detective. And we're going to talk about using DNA, where it's going, and also the issue of dealing with foundlings. Now, these are people who are not necessarily adopted, but were actually left on a stoop someplace or left in a garbage bin. So they have absolutely no connections. They don't even know who they're looking for. She's going to talk to us about how they're having success in matching foundlings with their birth families. Amazing stories coming up a little later on in the show. But right now, let's check in with Boston and my good friend, the chief genealogist with the New England Historic Genealogical Society and AmericanAncestors.org. It's David Allen Lambert. How are you, David?
Happy New Year from Beantown. I'm doing fine. How about you, Fish?
First of all, very excited to have a brand new radio station among our family of stations, WPKZ AM and FM in Fitchburg, Massachusetts. Your neck of the woods there, David.
It is. In fact, my father-in-law lives there, so he can tune in and listen to his son-in-law every Sunday now from 9 to 10.
Right, and they're on FM at 105.3, AM at 1280. You were actually on their morning show this past week as well.
I was, and a shout-out to Travis, Stewart, and Jack on the morning show, and we talked for a good 30 minutes about genealogy, and Jack had some DNA questions, and a couple of listeners even called in questions, so we already have a listener base out in Fitchburg, Mass. I'm very excited about it.
As am I. And let's get started with our family histoire news for this week. What do we have, David?
Well, I have three sets of twins that were born half in 2016 and the other half in 2017. Talk about double dating genealogical headaches. How about ones that really are double dating? In this case, born in 2016 on New Year's Eve, and then the sibling was born the next morning. This happened in San Diego, California, Atlanta, Georgia, and in Glendale, Arizona. And you would think that this is commonplace, but in 2015, 2016, there's only one recorded set of twins born.
I wonder if that happened going from the 20th to the 21st century. I mean, that's a crazy one there.
That's true. My hat's off to these parents with children that can always say they're a year older than each other.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you genealogical records are fun to look at, as we know, but sometimes you need to go to museums. This time I would go to the Oriental Institute at the University of Chicago, where they have found an 8-foot-long scroll from ancient Egypt. What makes it interesting? It's a prenuptial agreement.
Wow.
It's actually a genealogical treasure, Fisher. This is amazing. It has on it that the bride will receive 1.2 pieces of silver each year of her life and 36 bags of grain. Of course, she and her family had to put this up front. But besides that, it doesn't just give the details of the bride and the groom. It gives where they were from, the husband's occupation, who drew up the contract, and the names of both sets of their parents.
Wow. Unbelievable.
So if you have an ancient Egyptian connection in your family tree, check with the University of Chicago. They may have a document for you. Well, you know, archives are wonderful things, and I know that we've both been to the Chambers Street Archives in New York City.
Yes.
And they're laying their hands on documents that haven't been unrolled in hundreds of years. They're now being rolled all the way to Albany, New York.
Yes, which is the state archives, of course.
Correct.
Hopefully this means that they're going to get digitized down the line. But I mean, the breadth of the material that they're making available now is incredible.
It's amazing to think that some of these documents that deal from the colonial period of the 17th century right on through into the 19th century, mentioning people like Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr, allegiance to King George III. And as we move further into the digital age, their hope is that these documents will be available online for researchers to use.
Absolutely.
Another New York story, which is kind of fun. A firefighter, when he was downstairs cleaning in his firehouse, found an old crushed can with some old trolley tickets from 1917, 100 years ago, and an old pack of smokes.
How crazy is that? Wow.
It really is. But the best part about it is he wants to remain anonymous. But in the same basement are old firehouse journals over 100 years old that say when the particular firefighters worked and what shifts they were on and whatnot. So he's hoping to figure out who the tickets belong to based upon looking at the journal from 1917. And in fact, you have your own ancestor who was quite involved in firefighting in the city, if I recall correctly.
And I actually had one on the first firefighting team, the Rattle Watch of New Amsterdam back in the 1650s. So that was an interesting find.
So you have firebugs in your family all the way back to the colonial days.
All over the place, yeah.
My tip for this week really is kind of like charity begins at home. I sit on the board of trustees for my hometown library, and the director of the library contacted me because we're moving into a new space and some construction going on, and they wanted to dispose of the original newspapers since the 1870s because, well, they're on microfilm. My argument there is showing them just a couple of rolls of film, and I'm sure you've seen microfilm where a scratch happens and it tears through the whole thing. The other issue is try to replicate a good image from a newspaper photo from microfilm.
Can't
it's almost
do it.
impossible.
Yeah, you got to have them digitized.
So I told them, let's wrap them up, mothball them for the time being, because this is throwing away original history. So my tip to you is contact your public library and see if your local newspapers are in jeopardy. Now that many are microfilmed or in the digital age, you don't want to see your history thrown away because those pages could be somebody's ancestors and the only clue that they may find. AmericanAncestors.org every week offers a free guest member database. And for you people with New England roots, the colonial vital records for Dedham and Springfield, Massachusetts are now on AmericanAncestors.org and includes one of your ancestors from Dedham, Mass.
That's right. Joseph Clark and Alice Fenn. All right. Thanks, David. Always great to talk to you. And coming up next, she's the DNA detective you know from 2020 and Finding Your Roots with Dr. Henry Louis Gates. We'll talk to CeCe Moore in 3 minutes on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show.
Have you saved the date? RootsTech, the world's largest family history and technology conference, is coming up Wednesday, February 8th through Saturday, February 11th in Salt Lake City, Utah at the Salt Palace Convention Center. Last year's conference was attended by over 28,000 people from all over the world, there to learn more about finding, sharing, and preserving the records of their families. This year's keynote speakers include actor-producer LeVar Burton, DNA expert CeCe Moore, HGTV's Property Brothers Drew and Jonathan Scott, and cake boss Buddy Valastro. Plus, this year's RootsTech Expo Hall will feature over 200 exhibitors from all over the world. Sharpen your sleuthing skills with more than 200 breakout sessions, covering every level of expertise, discussing DNA, digital preservation, online tools, and much more. You're going to want to be part of RootsTech 2017. Sign up now at rootstech.org, hosted by Family Search International.
Well, Genies, my personal family history researcher who sends me new information day and night has sent me some incredible new records and newspaper stories lately. Hi, it's Fisher, and the name of that researcher, by the way, is myheritage.com. It's the hardest working service in genealogy, looking for records of your family 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Yes, even while you're sleeping. How does it work? MyHeritage uses hundreds of algorithms to match your ancestors to over 5 billion records from around the world, and with 97% accuracy. That means no more wasting time figuring out whether or not a match really is a match. I hear from listeners all the time who are shocked with how much information is accurately found and then passed along. And now MyHeritage will translate your ancestors' names into English or any other language you like from foreign records. In fact, it works with over 40 languages. No one else does this. Whether you're a beginner or seasoned researcher, you need myheritage.com.
Extreme Genes is sponsored in part by 23andMe.com, a personalized genetic service that helps you understand what your 23 pairs of chromosomes, your DNA, say about you. 23andMe.com gives you a snapshot view of your DNA with more than 60 detailed reports on your health, traits, and ancestry, plus tools to explore and compare your DNA with family and friends. 23andMe.com is the first and only genetic service available directly to you that includes reports that meet FDA standards. Here's how it works. Order your DNA kit from 23andMe.com. Provide your saliva sample from home and mail it back to a CLIA-certified lab. Then you'll be notified when your reports are ready online. You'll also receive ongoing reports as new genetic discoveries are made and as 23andMe.com is able to clear new reports through the FDA. See why more than 1 million people are experiencing their genetics with 23andMe.com. Order your DNA kit today at 23andMe.com.
And we are back. It's Extreme Genes, America's family history show, and extremegenes.com. My name is Fisher, and I've got my good friend CeCe Moore on. She is the genetic genealogist. CeCe, welcome back. It's been too long.
Yes, it has. Thanks so much for having me back.
And everybody knows CeCe from Finding Your Roots and all kinds of other genealogy-based TV shows. And before we get going, CeCe, I got to mention to you the other night, because you deal so much with the tracing down birth parents and the like. I had a friend of mine who's a neighbor, and she had recently found her birth parents, who provided her with the names of her genetic grandparents. And so she wanted me to give a little help in getting that grandparent line back. She wasn't having much luck with it. So we worked with her paternal grandfather and went back into Germany. And we found a gal back there by the name of Charlotta Trump. And I said, well, isn't this incredible? You've got a Trump right there in your line. It's phenomenal. It's fantastic. They're dear friends of mine. Anyway, so she was,
you never know what you're going to find back there.
No, you don't. And so she was kind of laughing about it. We went on and we had some really good success in getting back several generations. And then she left, and one of my windows was still open. I was looking at that Trump name, and I thought, well, I wonder where Donald Trump's lines come from in Germany. I know he's German on the father's side. It was the same town. Karlstad, Germany.
No.
Yeah. So I found a site that had his ancestors going back. Bottom line, she has 17 ancestors that I've found that are in common with her. She is a fourth cousin, twice removed, to the president-elect. And I don't know if she's going to like that or not.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty close connection, too. You know, we all probably connect back about 10 generations or so, but
to most presidents, yes. Yeah, this is a real close one. Fourth cousin, twice removed. So we'll see how she takes the news, you know?
I hope she's happy. Hey, you know, she'll have a friend in the White House.
Exactly. Hopefully she'll have some access there. Well, let's talk about RootsTech. It is coming up in early February. You're going to be a keynote speaker. I'm very excited to be able to see you.
Yes, I'm so excited, too. Ever since I first started speaking back at RootsTech, it was kind of a dream to get to do a keynote. I didn't know that it would ever happen. So when they invited me, I was extremely excited.
I think, frankly, it's just a little overdue because you've got so much to say. But let's talk about this thing you're doing with birth parents right now. You're doing some great work with people and filling in that hole that so many of them experience when they're trying to figure out, who am I really? What are you seeing as you find people and get them connected with their birth parents?
It's pretty incredible. It's a variety of people searching. Some people have been searching since they were children, at least in their minds. And some people only recently discovered that their genetic family tree is not what they expected. So we see a wide spectrum of experiences in that regard. But with all of them, it's this curiosity and this need to learn more about their heritage and their roots. So some people really do have preconceived notions of what they'll find. And sometimes that's because they were provided with information about their birth parents, either from the adoption agency or it was passed down with oral history from their adoptive parents. And sometimes it fits great, and we can use that information in conjunction with the DNA to identify the birth parents. And sometimes it is completely different than what we were expecting to find. Sometimes that information that was provided was completely erroneous, either mistakenly or intentionally, it's hard to know. And so someone may grow up thinking that they're of a certain heritage. They do a DNA test and they find out completely different. In fact, like the one show I was on with you where Alice tested, not adopted, but thinking she was fully Irish and found out she was half Jewish.
Yes.
That is a very, very common occurrence. And a lot of people are discovering their social father is not their genetic father or biological father. And so they'll take a DNA test and half of their admixture or ethnicity results are very unexpected.
I would think that that would be the biggest shocker is when people go through and find that their parents aren't really their parents. And that does happen periodically. You know, divorces, of course, have been up for the last 50 years, basically. And so we're seeing more and more adoptees. And of course, there was the sexual revolution as well. So this is just going to become more and more and more common, yes?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Incredibly common. But what's happening is the databases have gotten so large that a big percentage of these people can resolve their questions pretty easily. And, you know, we used to joke that people would take a DNA test and think their family tree was just going to fill in for them. We're going in that direction. Before too much longer, that's going to be at least partially true. And it's amazing to see now. When someone would get a half-sibling match or a first cousin, we would say, oh, lightning has struck. But now lightning is striking multiple times a day.
Yeah.
In my Facebook group, DNA Detectives, every single day we see people posting who have found a close family match that were searching for birth family. And in some cases weren't searching for birth family and got a surprise. So it's very, very common now.
Sure. And are there support groups for people through your site where they find something that was completely unexpected and they need a little help?
Yes. So almost 2 years ago, I started a Facebook group called DNA Detectives. And the purpose was to help people that were searching for birth family using DNA. Now, that could be immediate birth family or it could be a great-grandparent. So it's not just adoptees.
Sure.
Or people of unknown paternity. It's all types of people using DNA in order to resolve family mysteries or questions. And we've got 31,000 people now in just under 2 years, which is, I would never have guessed.
Wow.
We've got volunteers there that are helping to answer questions. So professional genetic genealogists are there helping volunteering. And then we've got people with a lot of expertise in different areas. And then another really great thing that's happened, which is what I hoped would happen, is when we help somebody to resolve their case, they're sticking around and paying it forward and helping other people. And so it's really a members helping members forum, and it's intended to be a self-education forum because we used to just take the cases ourselves and solve them.
Oh, yeah. But that's a lot of work.
Well, and we can't. There's 30,000 people in the group,
sure,
with the majority of them searching. And that's just touching, just the surface of it. There's many, many more, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people searching for birth family. And so we want to teach them how to do it themselves. And so they'll come on, they ask questions, we guide them, and hopefully that way they can resolve their own searches. And when they do, they seem to get a lot of satisfaction from that too, rather than just having me take the case and solve it for them. And when they do identify their birth parents, it's funny because they know their family trees better than the people that they find. Much better. They know them inside and out. They can tell their new families all kinds of things about their genealogy that they didn't know.
We're talking to CeCe Moore. She's the genetic genealogist. CeCe, the laws in most states are starting to open up when it comes to adoptive records. And, of course, the records combined with DNA, that's when it's all most powerful. What states are still difficult to deal with and you're having to do end runs around?
Oh, the hardest ones are New York, Florida, and California has really strict laws, but we do have some good tools there, so they're not the worst. I would say when I groan the most is probably when it's Florida or New York. Arizona is also hard, but there are some good confidential intermediaries there who can help out. But if you're just trying to work outside the system, Arizona is very hard as well.
Sure, but DNA is obviously the best tool to get around anything like that. What percentage of these reunions, when there is a living parent that can be found, would you say are positive experiences as opposed to the negatives?
From my experience, from the very beginning when I started doing this, it's an extremely high number that we see a positive outcome.
Yes.
Now, that's not always that it's the birth parent. They might not be living, or
Sure.
sometimes the birth parent doesn't want contact, but there is almost always somebody who does, a sibling, a first cousin, an aunt, an uncle, even a grandparent in some cases. I have to estimate, but I'd say 95% plus,
Yeah.
we see what is considered to be a positive outcome. It might even be higher, but it also depends on people's perspective. I'd say for most people, just knowing their family tree and their heritage is a positive outcome for them.
Absolutely. I've helped people over the years myself, not nearly as many as you have, obviously. But anecdotally, it almost turns out positive all the time. So when I read the negative stories and all that, I'm always kind of surprised because I've just seen so much good that's come from it. But I do always feel the need to prepare people that we don't know how this is going to go, and you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube once we've squeezed it out. So are you ready to do this or not,
Yeah, and with adoptees, they're generally very aware of that. They've usually considered pretty much every possibility already, especially if they've been searching a long time. But the media likes to grab onto the negative stories.
Yes.
So in my personal experience, the cases that I've been closely involved with, 100% of them have had positive outcomes. Now, that's not to say it was 100% positive. Overall, it's 100% positive. But everyone's family has, strong points and weak points, and everybody has family issues. And that's going to be true with a birth family when you find them as well. Just like the family you grew up with. We all
Sure.
have something in our families that's not 100% positive. So I've been really fortunate that all of the cases that I've been closely involved with have turned out really, really well.
CeCe, this is all great stuff, especially for anybody who is dealing with this issue in their own families. We got to take a break. You want to stick around for another segment?
Sure. Yes, thanks.
And this segment of the show has been brought to you by MyHeritage.com. And just a reminder, if you haven't signed up yet for our weekly Genie newsletter, you can do that at our website, ExtremeGenes.com. I should mention, by the way, pardon our dust there. We're going through a complete rebuild from what we did back in 2013 when we first started Extreme Genes. But the newsletter is going to give you all kinds of links to great interviews from the past if you haven't caught them. We'll have articles and guest columns as well, and of course links to current stories that are happening all the time. More with CeCe Moore coming up for you in 5 minutes.
Scientific studies have proven that youth who know even a little bit about their family history perform better academically and have a greater sense of personal confidence and stability. Genealogy is its own incredible superpower that arms our children with super strength. But how do you get your child or grandchild interested in studying their family history? That kind of stuff is just for grandmas, right? Not anymore. ZapTheGrandmaGap.com leaps the generation gap in a single bound. Author Janet Hovorka provides you with useful and timely advice on helping the young people in your life become engaged in their own family history. Janet has an entire collection of books to inspire the young and the young at heart in fun, interactive ways. She also offers creative tips and advice on her blog and in her free weekly newsletter. Stop by ZapTheGrandmaGap.com today to sign up for Janet's free email newsletter with 52 weeks of easy tips, free downloads, and order your set of resource books and workbooks. Looking for an easy way to show off your family history and share it with your family? Family Chartmasters offers beautiful custom pedigree art pieces and inexpensive family reunion draft charts in any design or size that fits your needs. With a free consultation at FamilyChartmasters.com, you can get started creating a new family masterpiece. Family Chartmasters has over 11 years of experience in creating and printing family charts. They can print any style of genealogy chart from any genealogy file and can create exactly what you're looking for. You'll work with a specialized and talented consultant whose goal is to make you happy. Decorative charts make fantastic gifts for all occasions. And with Family Chartmasters' option of ordering duplicate charts at half price along with your original purchase at full price, you can afford to give a family heirloom to each member of your family. Contact Family Chartmasters today at FamilyChartmasters.com for your free consultation. Family Chartmasters will give the greatest care to your family history.
Hey, we're back. Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show at extremegenes.com. Fisher here with my good friend CeCe Moore, the genetic genealogist. She's going to be a keynote speaker coming up at RootsTech in Salt Lake City, Utah in February. And so looking forward to getting a little FaceTime with you at that time, CeCe. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
And well, we were just talking about all the work you're doing to help people with their search for birth parents, birth grandparents. You've been dealing with people where their ancestors were switched at birth. You say you've come across a second case of that. So let's talk about foundlings.
So with adoptees, as you mentioned, a lot of states are opening the records and letting them have access to their original birth certificates. And partly I think that's happening because we're able to resolve a lot of those cases with DNA anyway. So it makes sense for the states to start allowing access. I think it's a more private way of handling it. So they're starting to see that. But for some people, that's not going to help. And there's a big group of people, much larger than I thought, called foundlings, people that were abandoned as either newborns or young children, that there's no records to open because nobody knows who their birth parents were except for those involved.
Sure.
And so I really like working on their cases. We call them DNA-only cases because they're only going to be resolved with DNA. And so this has only been able to happen in the last couple of years. They really didn't have any hope of finding their birth family unless someone came forward, which is very rare.
I seem to recall there was a case not long ago of somebody who had a baby stolen back in 1964, and then a baby turned up in New Jersey. They took the baby back, assumed it was their own, and DNA proved, no, this was not your baby. And so he took on the identity of that baby and has grown to be a man, obviously, and now they're just trying to figure all this stuff out. It's got to be a much more difficult thing than just your standard adoption situation.
Yes, you're referring to Paul Franzak,
yes.
And my team of DNA detectives and I identified his true identity, his biological identity and birth family last summer, not this 2016, but 2015. And he's writing a book that is coming out in the spring talking about that. So we still haven't found the original Paul Franzak or the real Paul Franzak because that's more like a needle in the haystack. He needs to take a DNA test or one of his descendants, children or grandchildren. But we were able to use the man who was raised as Paul Franzak. We just used his DNA to lead us back to his birth family.
Sure. Now, as I recall, though, there were some complications with it, weren't there?
Well, it turns out he has a twin. His
No.
name is Jack, yes. He had a twin named Jill, and Jill is missing. So at the time he was abandoned, he was older than most foundlings. He was about 2 years old. And so, probably something bad happened to Jill, and the parents had to abandon Jack because how do you have one twin and not the other? And they told the family that they'd been adopted out. And we don't know what happened to Jill. I hope she turns up and she's fine, but I suspect that's not going to be the case.
Wow.
So we solved one mystery and opened up a whole other mystery.
Which is the way of the world in genealogy, right?
Yes. And, the same thing happened with the Benjamin Kyle amnesiac case that finally just went public. We also resolved that in summer of 2015. And when we identified who he was, we found out that he was already missing from his family much, much earlier. So in that case, we also found the identity, but it turns out there was another mystery involved with that identity. Those types of cases, as we were just saying, only DNA can resolve those. And so I take a real special interest in those. And we have a smaller offshoot of DNA detectives called Foundling Finders. And we only allow people that were abandoned as young children into that group. And we work with them very closely one-on-one. We've been able to resolve a huge amount of those cases in the last 2 years.
Now, foundlings, obviously, though, have been given up or left somewhere. This is the typical baby left on the stoop situation.
Yeah.
Or even in a trash bin sometimes.
Yeah.
So when you find relatives, have you found any of the parents who actually abandoned the child and gotten them back together?
Many, actually.
Really?
Believe it or not. Well, there's a biological bond there. No matter what the circumstances are, what I've learned is that biological bond is not easily broken. And when we have found these birth mothers in particular, they have usually carried a lot of guilt and shame and worry all these years or decades since they did that. And when we're able to reunite them, I have found that the foundlings, the people that were abandoned, are incredibly forgiving. They just want answers. They just want that connection, and they want to know the circumstances that caused that. The birth mothers, in many cases, have been really happy to provide it because they needed to get past it too. So we have seen emotional healing, and we've even seen physical healing. When we find these mothers, oftentimes they have health issues, not surprisingly, from years and years and years of guilt and stress that have added to that. And we've seen a lot of that lift when they're able to meet. Now, back in May, we had a 2020 episode where one woman had abandoned 3 different children, all within a small radius. And we were able to identify her, and they reunited with her on air and have continued their relationship with her.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Side, yeah, and we see it. The birth fathers usually didn't know of the child's existence. So that's a very different situation.
Have there ever been legal consequences as a result of identifying these people?
Not so far. Now, there is a statute of limitations, and so they would not be prosecuted except in very unusual circumstances. If it was attempted murder, it starts becoming more questionable whether they could be. So if somebody was found in a dumpster and then the mother was identified.
It just matters how long the statute of limitations is, right?
Right. So different states would have different laws in different countries. And so I can't say, it would never, ever, ever happen. But in my experience, it is never an issue. And it's something that I have had to reassure the birth mothers in the past that they weren't going to be prosecuted. We just want them to come forward. We can get this resolved and everyone can get past it. None of the foundlings I've ever worked with were interested in prosecuting their mothers. It wasn't about revenge. It was just about answers.
Sure. Wow, what an incredible story. She's CeCe Moore. She's the head of the DNA detectives, and you've got quite a group of volunteers who are helping all kinds of folks with the birth parents and the foundlings, and just doing general DNA to try to connect families even further back. How do people get involved with you, CeCe?
We're so fortunate that we have such a strong, supportive community. People can just join the DNA Detectives Facebook group. If they have an area of expertise, they can feel free to jump in and start answering questions. If it's something they're interested in, but they don't really know a lot about it yet, they can just read along and learn. In fact, when I started in genetic genealogy, I was self-taught. I just read the fantastic mailing lists and forums that we have always had as a community. And so that's really the best way to get involved. People often contact me and want to be mentored, and unfortunately I don't have time to mentor one-on-one. That was one of my goals for the group, was it could be kind of a group mentoring, a place for people to learn the ropes and get better and better and more expertise at what we do.
She's CeCe Moore, the genetic genealogist, the DNA detective. You see her on 2020 on Finding Your Roots with Dr. Henry Louis Gates. CeCe, always great to have you on the show. We can't get you on enough. She's going to be the keynote coming up, one of the keynotes at RootsTech in February in Salt Lake City, Utah. And I'm looking forward to seeing you there, CeCe. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks so much for letting me. I appreciate it.
And this segment has been brought to you by 23andme.com DNA. And coming up next in 3 minutes, we'll be talking to Tom Perry, our preservation authority from tmcplace.com. In fact, he's going to be at RootsTech as well. In fact, we're trying to arrange a meet and greet so we can all visit with you, David Allen Lambert and myself and Tom at RootsTech coming up in February. We'll have the info on that coming up hopefully in the next couple of weeks on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show.
Everybody needs a place of their own to plant their family tree, preferably one that no one else can mess with and only you can control. That perfect place is Roots Magic. Roots Magic has been a family history standard for years, and now Roots Magic 7 is on the market. It's an award-winning genealogical software program which makes researching, organizing, and sharing your family history easy. You can start from scratch or import data from other software or even Family Search. Roots Magic also automatically finds finds records relating to your ancestors from MyHeritage, Family Search, and soon Ancestry and Find My Past. You can use it to create beautiful charts, reports, and books. And have you ever thought about making your own family history website? Roots Magic can make that happen too. And of course, there are free videos, guides, and technical support to help you along. Isn't it about time you planted your family tree? Whether you're a beginning genie or experienced professional, Roots Magic is the perfect tool for you.
Legacy Tree Genealogists is a proud sponsor of Extreme Genes. Based in Salt Lake City, Utah, near the world's largest family history library, we've been working with genealogists all over the globe since 2004 to track down records, find your ancestors, and the stories that bring your legacy to life. We also analyze DNA test results, help you join lineage societies, and find missing cousins or heirs to property. Legacy Tree is the recommended research partner of MyHeritage.com and is the world's highest client-rated genealogy firm. Call us toll-free at 1-800-818-1476. Call now or register online to get a free estimate. Learn from our free genealogy tips on our blog at legacytree.com/blog. Even experienced researchers can benefit from our proven and experienced staff of specialists who can bring new approaches to old problems. Legacy Tree Genealogists. We do the research. You enjoy the discoveries. legacytree.com.
Have you saved the date? RootsTech, the world's largest family history and technology conference, is coming up Wednesday, February 8th through Saturday, February 11th in Salt Lake City, Utah at the Salt Palace Convention Center. Last year's conference was attended by over 28,000 people from all over the world, there to learn more about finding, sharing, and preserving the records of their families. This year's keynote speakers include actor-producer LeVar Burton, DNA expert CeCe Moore, HGTV's Property Brothers Drew and Jonathan Scott, and cake boss Buddy Valastro. Plus, this year's RootsTech Expo Hall will feature over 200 exhibitors from all over the world. Sharpen your sleuthing skills with more than 200 breakout sessions, covering every level of expertise, discussing DNA, digital preservation, online tools, and much more. You're going to want to be part of RootsTech 2017. Sign up now at rootstech.org, hosted by Family Search International.
And welcome back to America's Family History Show, Extreme Genes and ExtremeGenes.com. Fisher here, your Radio Root Sleuth. This segment is brought to you by FamilySearch.org, and it's preservation time with our good friend Tom Perry from TMCPlace.com, who's usually in the studio here with us. But, Tom, you've been snowed in. How are things at your place?
Oh, it's just crazy. You know, the weird thing is in the fall, I was noticing my goats were eating a lot more than they normally do, and I'm thinking, oh, no, just like when squirrels are gathering nuts and stuff, they do more.
Yes.
I thought, oh, no, it can't be. Yeah, it is. I mean, it's been absolutely crazy. You know, it's nice that Mother Nature lets the animals know what's happening, but boy, did she mess us up this weekend.
No kidding. Wow. Well, sorry that you couldn't make it in, but hope you're surviving well back at the ranch.
Yep, exactly. Back at the ranch. I got about 2 feet of snow, and I can't even get my four-wheel drive Suburban out.
All right, we've got an email here for you with a question from Greg, and he said, I'd like to get my negatives digitized, but I guess I was always under the impression that anything outside of 35 millimeters is going to be around $4 to $5 each. That's how much I've paid in the past at a local mom and pop shop. However, you mentioned that most will fall into a $1 price range as long as there are 65 or more. I'd be happy to start by sending you 100. Thanks, Greg. So is that a standard in the business then, Tom? If you've got more than 100, then it's $1 a piece?
Yeah, it depends on exactly what size they are. You know, in most of those mom-pop places, if they're doing a high-scan DPI, it's a good way to do them. Now, one thing you have to be real careful about doing negatives, you can't do negatives in a regular flatbed scanner because you have to have a light on both sides. So you have to have like a special Canon-type scanner that has lights that go through both sides. The top isn't white or black. There's a light on both sides in order to get a real good transfer. And yet the industry standard is about $5 a piece. That's what's normal. But if you have a whole bunch of them, depending on what size they are, of course we can do discounts for you, and even your local place, I'm sure if you went in and said, hey, I've got 100 or 500 or 600 or whatever, and talk to them. And especially if it's a slow time, you might be able to get them done for less money. And one thing that's important, too, is if you're not in a rush, tell the people, whether it's us or a local place, say, hey, I want to get these done. I don't have to have them a certain day. It's no rush. And then a lot of times we can say, okay, we can put a no rush on it. And so we have the guys who are paying the normal $5 a piece for the high-end ones. And then when we're done with those, then we can jump on yours. And you could get them back in a week. You might get them back in 4 weeks. Or if there are ones that you don't want to let out of your site for that long, you can set up an appointment and say, hey, I want to schedule this for this week. I want to do this, da-da-da-da-da-da. Then we can leave a spot open and then do them. Now, if you're talking about September to December, forget it, ain't going to happen. But in January and February and places like that, sometimes you have downtimes. Your local mom and pop place can give you discounts. But that's one thing you want to really check and be careful on. When you take it to somebody to scan, see what kind of a scanner are you using, and say, are you just using a standard flatbed scanner? And if they are, then it's not going to work. You need to make sure you're using a really high-end, like a Canon scanner, that will have the light on both sides. And a lot of times, if you have a lot of negatives to do, just rent them, like Easy Photo Scanner, scanners for photos, for slides, for negatives, for all kinds of things. So a lot of times, if you have like a big thing of photos and negatives and everything you want to do at once, instead of blowing $400 on a cheap scanner at Costco, why not rent one for a week for $400 that's super high, a $3,500 type scanner that you can use to your heart's desire, and it comes totally in a package. So you've got the scanner, the computer. It's what I call idiot-proof, and trust me, I did it without reading the instructions just to see if I could do it. And if I can do it without reading the instruction, it's idiot-proof, and it was so easy to use.
Real quick, Tom, you mentioned in there, by the way, about if people are nervous about leaving them for long periods of time. Is that a question you ask people about how they keep track of things to make sure they don't lose them?
Yeah, that's good, too. But remember, just because they do that doesn't mean they do everything else well.
Well, that's a good point. We'll be back in 3 minutes with more of your questions on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show.
Looking for an easy way to show off your family history and share it with your family? Family Chart Masters offers beautiful custom pedigree art pieces and inexpensive family reunion draft charts in any design or size that fits your needs. With a free consultation at FamilyChartMasters.com, you can get started creating a new family masterpiece. Family Chart Masters has over 11 years of experience in creating and printing family charts. They can print any style genealogy chart from any genealogy file and can create exactly what you're looking for. You'll work with a specialized and talented consultant whose goal is to make you happy. Decorative charts make fantastic gifts for all occasions. And with Family Chart Masters' option of ordering duplicate charts at half price along with your original purchase at full price, you can afford to give a family heirloom to each member of your family. Contact Family Chart Masters today at FamilyChartMasters.com for your free consultation. Family Chart Masters will give the greatest care to your family history.
When was the last time you heard your grandmother's voice or saw your family enjoying life back in the 1950s or 60s? If the reason is you haven't known what to do with your old recordings, videos, and films, here's your answer. The Multimedia Center in Salt Lake City.
We brought in a video project to the Multimedia Center, and overnight they duplicated it to DVD so we could meet our deadline.
The Multimedia Center, 2870 East, 3300 South, Salt Lake City. Open Monday through Friday, 10 to 6. Call 801-483-1717 or go to transferduplication.com.
Extreme Genes is sponsored in part by 23andme.com, a personalized genetic service that helps you understand what your 23 pairs of chromosomes, your DNA, say about you. 23andme.com gives you a snapshot view of your DNA with more than 60 detailed reports on your health, traits, and ancestry, plus tools to explore and compare your DNA with family and friends. 23andme.com is the first and only genetic service available directly to you that includes reports that meet FDA standards. Here's how it works. Order your DNA kit from 23andme.com. Provide your saliva sample from home and mail it back to a CLIA-certified lab. Then you'll be notified when your reports are ready online. You'll also receive ongoing reports as new genetic discoveries are made and as 23andme.com is able to clear new reports through the FDA. See why more than 1 million people are experiencing their genetics with 23andme.com. Order your DNA kit today at 23andme.com 23andme.com.
Genies, it's Fisher with exciting news. The Weekly Genie, the official newsletter of Extreme Genes, is here. It's your Monday morning briefing on what's happening in the world of genealogy and family history and on Extreme Genes. Get all the details of jaw-dropping stories of discovery and keep up with the latest techniques in family history research. Get to know more about your favorite Extreme Genes personalities. And it's free. Sign up for the Weekly Genie now at extremegenes.com or the Extreme Genes Facebook page. And when you do, you'll receive David Allen Lambert's top 10 tips for beginning genealogists from the chief genealogist of the New England Historic Genealogical Society. Sign up today for the Weekly Genie. All right, we are back for our final segment of Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show. It's Preservation Time with Tom Perry from tmcplace.com. A lot of great emails to start off the new year, Tom. And here's one from Toledo, Ohio. Brian Berkeley, a Buckeye fan. He says, "Go Buckeyes." Tom, after listening to you for a while now, I was wondering if you could help me. I want to take all of my physical DVD movies and turn them into a digital version, then put them on a hard drive and watch them over my home internet network. What is the best program for accomplishing this? Is it technically legal to do this? I have the entire Adobe suite. Is there a program in there that can get this done? Thanks for the time and advice.
Hey, Brian, that's a really, really good question. And I like how you put in there, is this legal? Because some people do things that are illegal, so it's nice that you're asking, and that's a concern. As long as you're keeping them on your home network like you plan on doing, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, a lot of times when you download iTunes and even software now, it tells you can use these on 4 or 5 computers as long as they're in your home. You don't have like one at your office and one here, and your neighbors have a copy of it, and your 3 kids have copies of it. That's when you're getting into, no, just because you bought it doesn't mean you own it, okay? It just means that you have a license to use it. So in that case, if you have the whole Adobe suite, what I would recommend you do is you can go in and turn those into MP4s. And I'm trying to remember which one it is in Adobe that does MP4. I can't remember off the top of my head. But just go and do a search in Adobe for MP4 transfers, and it'll tell you exactly what software it is, where it works in your suite, and you'll be able to do that. For other listeners that are out there that want to do something like this, too, that don't have the full Adobe suite, because it's expensive, it's, absolutely incredible. I love it. You can get what we talk about all the time, and we can say this in tandem, Wondershare.
Yes.
We love Wondershare.
Yes, we do.
It's so awesome.
And very easy to use.
Oh, it is. It's just like drag and drop. I mean, it's so easy that you're thinking, now wait, there's got to be another step in this. So you can take all your DVDs, movies, home movies, whatever you have, turn them into MP4s, and then put them on your home server, whatever you use. In fact, even, your Apple TV, if you have it tied into that. And then what you want to do is just put them there, and you can even categorize them in folders by, horror movies, Star Wars, Star Trek, and then so whoever's in your house, like if your kids are in the kitchen and they're helping mom cook and they want to be watching an episode of Star Wars, and you're downstairs and you want to be watching Lord of the Rings or something, you can do that by accessing your server with these MP4s. And the thing that I've talked about before, the reason I really like MP4s is because they're about half the size of a normal, DVD, and they're really good quality. In fact, that's why Netflix chose to use them. When you download Netflix, they're generally MP4, so they're really, really good high quality. But just be really careful that you don't let other people have access to those. I would definitely put a password protection on it, because sometimes you might have some kids or some relatives over that don't have the morals that you do about copyright laws, and they could download them to their phone. They could email them to them at their own address or whatever, and then you're going to run into problems, because if you ever get caught, what's going to happen is they'll be able to go back through the old URL license and find out exactly where you are and get you, just like if you have an open Wi-Fi and your next-door neighbor is looking at porno on his computer, but accessing your Wi-Fi, you could go to jail or lose your job. There's so many bad things that could happen that you did not authorize.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point. Well, what a great question. And, of course, we take your questions all the time. You could email Tom at asktom@tmcplace.com, and you might hear your questions answered on the air. Did you get through the holidays okay? All healthy, Tom?
Oh, yeah, holidays were wonderful. I just loved them. Just last 2 days of the snow that just won't quit.
Awesome. Well, we're looking forward to doing a meet and greet with David Lambert and Tom and myself at our Extreme Genes booth at RootsTech coming up sometime during the 4 days that are happening in February 8th through the 11th in Salt Lake City, Utah. So we hope you'll make plans to join us. Thanks so much, Tom.
Thank you.
All right, and that wraps up our show for this week. This segment has been brought to you by LegacyTree.com. Thanks for joining us. By the way, if you missed any of our segments with CeCe Moore today, be sure to listen to the podcast. You can catch it on iTunes, iHeartRadio, or at ExtremeGenes.com. Take care. We'll talk to you again next week. Thanks for joining us. And remember, as far as everyone knows, we're a nice, normal family.